Marcus Reed, a former FBI agent, lives in seclusion in New York after the tragedy of losing his family. Drawn into a whirlwind when he saves his neighbor Emily from local bullies, he discovers they are part of an international human trafficking network, leading to an initial dramatic chase. The sound of shattering glass echoed in the rainy night of New York. Like a curse from hell, Marcus Reed stood still in the dark room of an old repair shop in Brooklyn, his hand gripping the handgun hidden under the counter. Blood dripped from a cut on his arm onto the rotting wooden floor, but he did not blink. He was no longer the predator. But tonight, the past had returned to tear him apart. A former FBI agent who had taken down drug lords at the Mexico and Japan borders. Now, just wanting to forget. But how could he forget? When the images of his wife and daughter being murdered haunted him like a ghost. The small room beneath the repair shop in the impoverished outskirts of Brooklyn had been Marcus's hideout for the past 4 years. The damp, moldy walls were covered in dust. The air heavy with the smell of machine oil and rusted metal. The sickly yellow streetlight filtered through the barred window, casting light on the cluttered items, a broken car engine, old tools, and secrets that customers would never reveal. Marcus sat behind the counter, his cold grey eyes scanning the security camera screen, his muscular body covered in scars beneath a black jacket. He spoke little, only nodding when customers came to fix bicycles or machinery, and shaking his head when they tried to haggle. His life now was a series of repetitive days repairing, eating hastily, and trying to bury memories. But then Emily Carter appeared, like a sudden ray of light in the darkness. The 9-year-old girl, with messy blonde hair and sad blue eyes, lived in the dilapidated apartment next door. Her mother, Sarah Miller, was a night shift nurse, often leaving Emily alone due to work. Emily frequently came to the repair shop, sitting on an old metal chair, sharing school stories in an innocent voice. Uncle Marcus. Today, my friends teased me for not having a dad, she once said, her tiny hands clutching the hem of her dress. Marcus did not respond much, silently pushing a juice box toward her. He knew that if he allowed closeness, the pain would resurface. His wife, Laura, and their little daughter had been killed in a revenge plot by a human trafficking network he had once dismantled in Japan. That was why he left the FBI, abandoning assassination missions in Tokyo, where he had once shot down the henchman of a drug lord without hesitation. Tonight, the rain in New York fell heavily, the sound of water pattering on the tin roof. Marcus was cleaning the old gun hidden under the counter when the shop door swung open. 3 men entered, their black leather jackets glistening with rain, faces tattooed and fierce. One tall, muscular man smirked. "Hey, boss. You're fixing Sarah's laptop. Right, hand it over, or you'll die." Marcus looked up, his eyes calm like a frozen lake. He recognized them, the henchmen of an international gang, specializing in human trafficking and contraband in the area. Sarah, Emily's mother, must have inadvertently gotten involved while trying to borrow money to treat her sick child. The second man, short but agile, brandished a knife. "Are you deaf? Hand over the item, or I'll cut your throat." Marcus remained still. But in his mind, everything was calculated. His heart raced. Adrenaline surged, a familiar feeling from his years as an agent. He slid the old laptop across the counter, hiding the data Sarah had unknowingly handed over inside. But the tall man scoffed, raising his handgun. "You think that's it? We need to make sure you stay quiet." The first gunshot rang out, the bullet grazing Marcus's shoulder, blood splattering. He rolled to avoid it, his right hand grabbing the repair knife hidden under the counter. The short man lunged at him, knife waving. But Marcus was faster. A straight punch to the throat sent the man crumpling down, choking. The tall man fired again, But Marcus had flipped the table for cover. Splintered wood flying under the hail of bullets. The air was tense. The sound of heavy breathing mingling with the rain. Marcus leaped over the counter, kicking the tall man's gun away, then stabbing the knife into his thigh. Blood gushed out, and the man screamed in pain. Who? Who are you? Marcus did not answer, only tightened his grip on the knife, his eyes flashing with suppressed anger. He interrogated quickly, "Where are Sarah and Emily?" The short man, writhing in pain, stammered, "We took them at the warehouse near the Hudson River." "But you don't dare." Marcus punched hard, and the man passed out. The sound of police sirens echoed from afar. Someone had reported. He quickly searched their pockets, finding a phone with a message from Hiroshi Tanaka, a henchman from Japan. "Take care of the shop owner. The data must reach Ivan Sokolov." Marcus's heart tightened. Emily, that innocent girl, now caught in hell. He recalled the old tragedy, his wife and child killed in an assassination in Tokyo, because he had once taken down Ivan Sokolov's brother, the Russian kingpin behind the global trafficking network. The past returned, like a blade cutting through the fragile peace. He hastily bandaged his wound, hid the bodies of the 3 men in a dark corner, then dashed out into the rain. New York tonight would be stained with blood. And Marcus Reed, once a ghost of the FBI, would not stop. Would he save Emily before it was too late, or would the darkness swallow her whole? Marcus plunged into the rain, his body aching but unstoppable. He ran through the damp alleys of Brooklyn, the smell of garbage and sewage mixing, his heart pounding. The warehouse near the Hudson River, the last testimony from the thug. He stopped by a graffiti-splattered wall, checking the stolen gun. 5 bullets. Enough to start. Was Emily still alive, the girl with the innocent smile? Where was she now, in this hell? He approached the warehouse from behind, hiding behind a rusty shipping container. Hoarse laughter echoed from inside, mixed with cries of pain. Marcus gently pushed the iron door, slipping into the darkness. Inside, flickering fluorescent lights illuminated a horrific scene. Sarah Miller tied to a chair, her face bruised from beatings, blood dripping from burns on her arm. 2 men, one wielding a whip, the other smirking, were interrogating her. "Where are you hiding the data?" "You bitch, boss. Tanaka doesn't like to wait," Sarah cried. "I fix at the shop next door." "Spare my daughter." Emily huddled in a corner, her eyes red, clutching an old doll tightly. She saw Marcus through the crack of the door, but he signaled for silence. His heart ached. Memories of his wife and child flooded back. Laura dead in a bombing in Japan. Their little daughter, who never got to call for her dad. He couldn't let history repeat itself. Marcus charged in like a ghost, kicking the whip out of the torturer's hand. The other man spun around, pulling a knife. "Who the hell are you?" The fight began in a flurry. The knife-wielding man lunged, the blade glinting under the lights. Marcus dodged to the side, his right fist connecting with the man's throat. The sound of breaking bones echoing. Blood sprayed out. The man staggered but still swung the knife horizontally. Marcus grabbed his wrist, twisting it backward, the knife clattering to the ground. The second man jumped in from behind, choking Marcus with his muscular arm. The air was suffocating. Marcus struggled, elbowing the enemy's stomach. He released his grip, coughing, and Marcus turned to deliver an uppercut, sending the man crashing to the floor. Sarah screamed, "Save my daughter," but Marcus had seen a third man, lurking in the shadows, dialing for backup. The gunshot rang out, the bullet grazing Marcus's ear. He rolled to avoid it, grabbing the fallen knife and throwing it straight into the shooter's shoulder. He screamed in pain, the gun flying out of his hand. Marcus charged forward, landing a flurry of punches to his face. Where is Emily? What are you doing to her? The man grimaced. The kid, she's safe. For now. But you, fool, have messed with Tanaka. Marcus choked him unconscious, then turned to free Sarah and Emily. The girl rushed into his arms, crying, "Uncle Marcus, I'm so scared." But before he could catch his breath, the phone of the unconscious man rang. Marcus answered. A cold voice on the other end. "Are you the shop owner? I am Hiroshi Tanaka. To save the two of them, bring the data to the port warehouse at midnight. Don't try anything funny, or the girl will die." The call ended, leaving a tense atmosphere. Sarah trembled. I borrowed money from them, just to treat Emily's illness, but they wanted to use me as bait to take down rivals in Russia. Marcus looked at her, his eyes filled with disdain but also pity. Ivan Sokolov's network, rooted in Russia, had expanded to Japan and America, trafficking in humans and organs. Tanaka was a cunning and ruthless henchman. He took Sarah and Emily back to the repair shop, bandaging their wounds. Emily fell asleep on the old sofa, her innocent face softening Marcus's heart. But he knew this was just the beginning. They wanted the data, the laptop hiding information about the trafficking network. Marcus opened it, the screen flashing a list of victims, including children from New York to Moscow. "The curse of darkness," he murmured, recalling missions in Tokyo, where he witnessed children being turned into slaves. Now, Emily had nearly become a victim. He could no longer stand by. Which area are you listening to this story from? And what time is it where you are right now? Leave a comment below so I know you are still healthy and fully focused on this story. My dear friend, we will continue right after this. From the clues in New York, Marcus infiltrated the local hideout, confronting the henchmen in a rapid gunfight, rescuing Emily's mother but discovering a larger plot leading to Japan. He was determined to cross borders to save Emily, who had been kidnapped. At midnight, Marcus drove an old truck to the New York port. The cold Hudson River wind blowing through the cracked windows. The air was heavy, the sound of waves crashing like whispers of death. The dim headlights illuminating the stacked rusty containers. Marcus gripped the steering wheel tightly, the laptop hiding trafficking data resting on the passenger seat. His heart steady, despite knowing this was a trap. Emily was temporarily safe at the repair shop with Sarah, but Hiroshi Tanaka's threats still echoed, "Bring the data, or the girl dies." He parked behind a pile of cargo, checking his handgun. 6 bullets, enough to carve a bloody path if needed. He approached the port warehouse from the shadows, hiding behind a container. Observing through a gap, Hiroshi Tanaka stood waiting with 5 henchmen, guns drawn, tall and skinny, his eyes squinting under the sickly yellow light, his thin mustache like a cunning trickster. "Where's the shipment?" Tanaka asked, his high-pitched voice carrying a Japanese accent. Marcus stepped out, tossing the laptop. "Let them go." But Tanaka scoffed. "You think it's that simple? This is a trap. I'm using you to take down Ivan Sokolov in Russia." He ordered Marcus to be captured, but Marcus was ready. A kick to the nearest guard's knee sent the gun flying, and Marcus picked it up to fire back. The sound of gunfire echoed, blood splattering in the darkness. The battle erupted in a flurry. 2 men charged with knives. Marcus dodged to the side, landing a straight punch to one's throat. He crumpled, choking. The other swung his knife horizontally, the blade glinting under the headlights. Marcus grabbed his wrist, twisting it backward, the knife clattering to the ground. Then elbowed the man's stomach. He flew backward into the container, the sound of metal ringing sharply. Tanaka fired from a distance, the bullet grazing Marcus's ear. Warm blood oozing, he rolled to avoid it, using the cargo as cover, firing continuously. The first bullet hit a man's shoulder, blood staining dark red. The air was tense. The acrid smell of gunpowder mingling with the scent of sea salt. The remaining 3 men charged in, one wielding a rifle, firing rapidly. Marcus dashed through the gap, kicking the gun away, then landing an uppercut. The sound of breaking bones echoed. The man fell. The second man choked him from behind, his muscles constricting, the air suffocating. Marcus struggled, driving his knee into the enemy's stomach, then spinning to punch his face. Blood sprayed, and the man released his grip. The last man lunged with a knife, but Marcus was faster. Throwing a stolen dagger, the blade embedded into his thigh. He screamed in pain and collapsed. Tanaka stepped back, his face pale. Who are you? Marcus pressed the gun to his head. Sarah and Emily are safe. What is the data? Tanaka grimaced. A list of trafficking victims from New York to Tokyo. But Emily, we've recaptured her at your shop. Marcus's heart tightened. A double trap. He punched Tanaka hard in the face, knocking him out, then searched his pockets for a phone. A message from Ivan Sokolov. Take the girl as bait. Tanaka is just a pawn. Marcus ran back to the repair shop, the rain pattering on the highway, weaving through traffic. Upon arrival, the shop was shattered. Sarah lay unconscious on the floor, blood flowing from her head. Emily was gone. Sarah whispered, They came suddenly. Took Emily to Japan. Rage surged like a tide. Marcus bandaged Sarah, then checked the security camera. 3 men dragging Emily into a black car with fake plates. The laptop data revealed Sokolov's network used children like Emily as organ slaves, transporting them from New York to Tokyo and then Moscow. Emily was the next target. Marcus clenched his fists. Old scars, aching. He would go to Japan, even if he had to face the world alone. Would Emily hold on until he arrived, or would the darkness swallow her before justice came? Marcus prepared quickly, a backpack containing a handgun, a dagger, and a few smoke grenades from the old FBI stash. He called an old friend, Jake Harlan, a former colleague in New York. I need a plane ticket to Tokyo, under a fake name. Jake hesitated. You're crazy. Marcus, Sokolov is pure evil. But he didn't listen. Driving to JFK Airport, the cold wind blowing through the windows. On the way, memories flooded back. Laura and their daughter died in Tokyo, due to him breaking up Sokolov's brother's trafficking ring. History was repeating itself. But this time he would not forgive. The plane took off, New York gradually disappearing beneath grey clouds. Marcus closed his eyes, envisioning Tokyo, a city of bright neon lights but filled with darkness. Tanaka was unconscious, but his henchman in Japan would be waiting. He opened the laptop, reviewing the list of victims, hundreds of children. With Emily at the top of the shipment list, inner pain surged. But his resolve was steely. Tokyo would be the first battlefield. Arriving in Tokyo, the drizzle fell, the smell of street food mingling with the thick smoke of vehicles. Marcus rented an old motorcycle, riding through the narrow streets of Shinjuku, the neon lights flashing brightly. Clues from Tanaka's phone led to an underground nightclub, Neon Shadow. He parked in a back alley, checking his weapons, ready. Inside the nightclub, the pounding electronic music filled the air, the crowd dancing under laser lights. Marcus scanned the room, spotting his target, a tattooed man sitting at the bar, Kenji, a low-level assassin for Tanaka. He approached from behind, tapping the man's shoulder. Tanaka sent me. Kenji spun around, suspicion in his eyes. Who the hell are you, Marcus? Acted, punching straight into his gut, causing him to double over. The glass shattering, Kenji sprang up, pulling a dagger, slashing horizontally. Marcus dodged, kicking hard into his knee. The bone cracked. The crowd panicked. Screams mixed with the music. But the nightclub was accustomed to violence. No one intervened. Kenji swung the knife down. Marcus grabbed his wrist, twisting it backward. The knife fell. Kenji landed a punch to Marcus's face. Blood spraying from his nose. Stinging pain. But he charged in, landing a flurry of punches to Kenji's ribs. Each hit like a hammer. 2 bodyguards rushed in, one wielding a broken bottle. Marcus grabbed a chair and threw it hard, hitting the first man in the head. He fell. The second pulled a handgun. Firing quickly, the bullet grazed Marcus's shoulder. Blood flowing. He lunged forward, kicking the gun away, then punching the man's throat. The man coughed and crumpled. Kenji took advantage, picking up a knife and lunging from behind. Marcus spun to dodge, the knife embedding into the wall. He grabbed Kenji's hair, slamming his head into the bar. Blood splattered. "Where is Emily? Where's the hideout?" Marcus growled. Kenji screamed in pain. "The kid at the Yokohama factory with Sokolov." "But you're dead for sure," Marcus tortured quickly, twisting the man's fingers. The sound of breaking bones echoed. Kenji stammered. "The factory is at Yokohama port, Japan. We raise children for organs to send to Russia." Marcus tightened his grip, recalling Laura's similar fate. Suddenly, another assassin, Ryu, Sokolov's henchman, appeared. "Gun aimed straight. Let him go." Ryu fired continuously, bullets shattering the bar glass. Marcus used Kenji as a shield, the bullets hitting him in the shoulder. He pushed Kenji into Ryu, then dashed into the elevator. Ryu chased after. Knife drawn, "Your read. Sokolov wants your head." In the cramped elevator, the knife fight began. Ryu slashed horizontally. Marcus dodged. The knife cut his shirt. He punched Ryu in the face. But the guy was quick. He slashed back, cutting Marcus's shoulder. Blood streaming down. Pain spread. But Marcus switched to fight mode. He grabbed Ryu by the neck, slammed his head against the wall. A loud echo. Ryu stabbed a knife into Marcus's thigh. Deep. He screamed, but kept punching Ryu until he was unconscious. The elevator opened. Marcus dragged Ryu into the back alley, torturing him. "Where exactly is Emily?" Ryu weakly laughed. "Yokohama. The old factory. But Sokolov is in Russia, waiting for you to die." Marcus knocked him unconscious, running away as police sirens blared. The wound was severe, blood soaking his pants. He limped to his motorcycle. Unable to continue, he called Jake. "I need a doctor in Tokyo." Jake sent the address of an underground clinic. Inside, the doctor stitched the wound without anesthesia. Marcus gritted his teeth in pain. "Why did you get involved with Sokolov after Laura?" the doctor asked. Marcus remained silent, tears rolling down his cheeks. After finishing, Marcus stood up, his resolve steely. A clue from Ryu, the Yokohama factory. He would infiltrate, save Emily. But Sokolov was in Russia, the final boss. Would the wound hold him back, or would memories be the strongest weapon upon arriving in Tokyo? Marcus was hunted by local assassins, taking them down in close-quarters knife fights, gathering information about the main hideout in Russia. The severe wound forced him to seek treatment from an old friend, stirring memories of revenge. After leaving the underground clinic in Shinjuku, Marcus rode his old motorcycle through the drizzling streets of Tokyo, the bright neon lights reflecting on the wet pavement. The stab wound in his thigh still throbbed every time he accelerated, blood seeping through the makeshift bandage. But he couldn't stop. The clue from Ryu led to the factory in Yokohama, where Emily might be held captive. The air was heavy with the smell of street food and exhaust, the cold wind from the bay carrying the scent of sea salt. Marcus parked a kilometer away from the factory, hiding behind an abandoned industrial hill. observing through a stolen binocular. The factory was an old concrete warehouse, surrounded by barbed wire. Guards with katanas and handguns patrolling. The sound of machinery echoed. White smoke billowing from a makeshift chimney, a place for processing human trafficking data. And perhaps an underground prison for children. He waited for nightfall. Darkness enveloping the Yokohama port. The distant sound of a train whistle like a warning. Marcus sneaked through the fence, cutting the barbed wire with pliers hidden in his backpack, his body rolling on the damp ground to avoid the sweeping headlights. Inside, he heard the faint cries of children. They were forced to sit sorting documents, their tiny hands trembling under the harsh yellow light. Marcus hid behind a chemical container, counting 12 children. Dirty faces, lifeless eyes. They were bait for organs. Just like Sokolov's plan. Suddenly, one child spotted him, eyes wide open. Marcus signaled for silence. But it was too late. A guard turned around intruder. The shout echoed. Alarms blaring, Marcus lunged from the shadows. Dagger in hand. Stabbing straight into the guard's stomach, he crumpled down. Blood gushing out dark red. 3 others charged in from the warehouse door. Katanas gleaming. Marcus dodged to the side. Kicking hard into one guy's knee, the bone cracked. He fell. The second guy swung his katana in a horizontal slash, the blade slicing through the air. Marcus grabbed his wrist, twisting it back. The sword fell with a clatter. Then he drove his elbow into the guy's throat. He choked. Unconscious. The air was tense. The smell of fresh blood mixed with pungent chemicals. The third guy pulled out a handgun and fired. The bullet grazing Marcus's arm. Blood flowing again. He charged forward, throwing the dagger, the blade embedded in his shoulder. He screamed in pain and collapsed. The children panicked, crying and running in all directions. Marcus shouted, "Hide!" He dashed deeper into the factory, where the local leader, Akira, Sokolov's right-hand man, was sitting at the command table, his face pale. Akira was tall, with a samurai bun, his eyes fierce. "Reed, you dare come to Japan?" He drew his katana, slashing downwards. Marcus used a wooden table as a shield, debris flying everywhere. He leaped over the table, kicking Akira's sword away, then lunged into close combat. Akira punched Marcus hard in the face, blood spraying from his nose. It hurt, but he didn't back down, grabbing Akira by the neck, slamming his head into the concrete wall. The impact was deafening. Akira twisted, pulling a knife from his boot, slashing horizontally. The blade cut Marcus's chest, blood soaking his jacket. But he grabbed Akira's wrist, twisting it back. The knife fell. The two rolled on the floor, exchanging blows. Akira choked Marcus, his muscles bulging. The air was suffocating. "You will die for that girl," Marcus remembered Emily. His anger exploded. He drove his knee into Akira's stomach, then punched him repeatedly in the face, blood splattering on the floor. Akira weakened but still twisted his lips into a smile. "Emily, not here." Sokolov took her to Russia for surgery. Marcus tightened his grip on his neck, his eyes bloodshot. "You're lying," but Akira fell unconscious, his breath weak. The sound of other guards echoed. Katanas drawn from the main door. Marcus grabbed the fallen handgun, firing rapidly, bullets slicing through the air. 3 guys fell, blood splattering. He ran to the children. Unlocking their shackles, run to the back door, they burst into tears, scattering into the darkness of the port. One child tugged at his shirt, Sister Emily. They took her away. Marcus's heart tightened. Akira had tricked him, using the factory as bait. He turned back, pressing the gun to Akira's head, Tell me, where is Emily? Akira weakly laughed. Moscow. Russia. Sokolov is waiting for you. To finish, Marcus shot Akira in the leg. He screamed in agony. Then Marcus set fire to a chemical barrel. Flames erupted, engulfing the factory. He escaped, the children safely following. Once back at the jeep, he called the local police anonymously, ensuring the children were rescued. But Emily was in Russia, Sokolov's main hideout. The wound was bleeding, his body exhausted. But the memory of Laura's tragic death drove him. He would fly to Moscow, eliminate Sokolov. Would Emily survive, or would he arrive too late? Repeating the old tragedy, the wound was worse than expected. Blood streaming from his chest and thigh. Marcus limped through the snowy streets of Tokyo, his vision blurred from blood loss. He couldn't fly to Russia in this condition. He needed urgent treatment. He called an old friend, Lena Sato, a former FBI nurse who had worked with him in Tokyo. Lena waited in a small apartment in Shibuya, neon lights flickering through the window. Marcus, you look like a corpse. Inside, Lena disinfected the knife wound with sake, stitching without anesthesia. Marcus gritted his teeth in pain, sweating profusely. Why did you get involved with Sokolov after Laura and the girl? Lena asked, her voice low. Marcus remained silent. Memories flooding back. The assassination in Tokyo years ago. Laura dying in a car bomb. Their little girl torn apart in revenge by Sokolov's brother. Tears streamed down his cheeks. Rare but burning. After finishing, Marcus stood up. His body aching but his resolve steely. A clue from Akira, the old factory in Moscow. He would fly to Russia. But first, he needed weapons from the black market in Tokyo. Lena handed him more painkillers. You can't take on Sokolov's empire alone. The FBI is hunting you. Marcus shook his head. They don't know Russia. This is my fight. He drove to Narita Airport, the cold wind blowing, carrying the scent of damp rain. On the way, he thought of Emily, a girl like the daughter he never had. Sokolov was not only trafficking humans, but also running a global network from Japan to Europe, using children as slaves. Marcus would destroy it all. At the airport, he bought a fake ticket, avoiding cameras by keeping his head down. The plane took off, Tokyo gradually disappearing beneath the clouds. Marcus closed his eyes, imagining Moscow, a city of white snow but full of darkness. Akira was unconscious, but Sokolov's henchmen in Russia would be waiting. He opened the stolen phone, checking messages. The girl is at the factory on the outskirts of Moscow. Baiting read. Inner pain surged. But he was ready. Moscow would be the next battlefield. Would Sokolov set deadly traps? Or would Marcus turn the hideout into a grave? Marcus infiltrated the processing factory in Moscow, rescuing a group of children forced into labor, eliminating the local leader in a fierce gunfight. But Emily was still imprisoned in the main hideout, driving him to continue his journey. The plane landed at Moscow airport under the grey sky of Russia. The biting cold wind carrying the scent of damp snow and coal smoke. Marcus Reed stepped out of the cabin, a heavy backpack filled with hidden weapons, the wounds on his thigh and chest still throbbing with pain with every step. He rented an old jeep from a local garage, driving straight to the outskirts, the muddy road shaking the vehicle as if it would fall apart. A clue from Akira led him here, an underground human trafficking data processing factory, where children were forced into slavery. And perhaps Emily was being held. His heart tightened at the thought of her, green eyes full of fear, clutching an old doll. Are you still alive? Emily, he whispered, gripping the steering wheel tightly. Memories of his wife and children's tragic deaths in Japan flooding back like a knife cut. He parked half a kilometer from the factory, hiding behind a snow-covered pine forest. Observing through binoculars, the factory was an old concrete warehouse, surrounded by barbed wire. Guards with AK-47 seconds patrolling. The air was heavy with the smell of chemicals. Black smoke billowing from a makeshift chimney. Marcus waited for nightfall. Darkness enveloping the Russian forest. The distant howl of wolves. Eerie. He sneaked through the fence, cutting the barbed wire with pliers hidden in his backpack, his body rolling on the cold snow to avoid the sweeping headlights. Inside, he heard the faint cries of children. They were forced to sit sorting victim lists, their tiny hands trembling under the harsh yellow light. Marcus hid behind a chemical container, counting 15 children, aged 7 to 11. Dirty faces, lifeless eyes. They were bait for organs, just like Sokolov's plan. Suddenly, one child spotted him, eyes wide open. Marcus signaled for silence. But it was too late. A guard turned around intruder. The shout echoed. Alarms blaring. Marcus lunged from the shadows, his right hand holding a silenced handgun. Accurately shooting the guard's knee, he crumpled down, screaming in pain. The first bullet opened the chaos. 3 others charged in from the warehouse door, rifles firing loudly. Marcus rolled to avoid. Bullets shattering the chemical container. White powder exploding everywhere. He fired back. The first bullet hitting one guy in the chest, blood spraying dark red. The second guy lunged with a knife. Marcus dodged, kicking hard into his stomach, then punching him in the jaw. The bone cracked. He fell. The children panicked, crying and running in all directions. Marcus shouted hide. He dashed deeper into the factory, where the local leader, Boris, Sokolov's right-hand man, was sitting at the command table, his face pale. Boris was tall, with a goatee, his eyes glinting with malice. "Reed, you dare come to Russia!" He drew a handgun, firing rapidly. Marcus used a wooden table as a shield. Debris flying everywhere. The air was tense, the smell of pungent chemicals mixed with fresh blood. Marcus leaped over the table, kicking Boris's gun away, then lunged into close combat. Boris punched Marcus hard in the face, blood streaming from Marcus's nose. It hurt, but he didn't back down, grabbing Boris by the neck, slamming his head into the concrete wall. The impact was deafening. Boris twisted, pulling a dagger from his boot, slashing horizontally. The blade cut Marcus's shoulder, blood soaking his shirt. But he grabbed Boris's wrist, twisting it back. The knife fell. The two rolled on the floor, exchanging blows. Boris choked Marcus, his muscles bulging. The air was suffocating. "You will die for that girl," Marcus remembered Emily. His anger exploded. He drove his knee into Boris's stomach, then punched him repeatedly in the face. Blood splattering on the floor. Boris weakened, but still twisted his lips into a smile. "Emily, not here." Sokolov took her to the main hideout for surgery. Marcus tightened his grip on his neck, his eyes bloodshot. "You're lying," but Boris fell unconscious, his breath weak. The sound of other guards echoed, gunfire booming from the main door. Marcus grabbed the fallen AK-47, firing rapidly, bullets slicing through the air. 3 guys fell, blood splattering. He ran to the children, unlocking their shackles. "Run to the back door." They burst into tears, scattering into the darkness of the forest. One child tugged at his shirt, Sister Emily. They took her away. Marcus's heart tightened. Boris had tricked him, using the factory as bait. He turned back, pressing the gun to Boris's head. "Tell me, where is Emily?" Boris weakly laughed. "The abandoned factory, on the outskirts of Moscow. Sokolov is waiting for you." To finish, Marcus shot Boris in the leg. He screamed in agony. Then Marcus set fire to a chemical barrel. Flames erupted, engulfing the factory. He escaped, the children safely following. Once back at the jeep, he called the local police anonymously, ensuring the children were rescued. But Emily was in the main hideout, the abandoned factory on the outskirts of Moscow. The wound was bleeding, his body exhausted. But the memory of Laura's tragic death drove him. He would infiltrate, save Emily. Would Sokolov be waiting, or would he arrive too late? Repeating the old tragedy. The wound was severe, blood streaming from his shoulder and thigh. Marcus limped through the snowy forest of Moscow, his vision blurred from blood loss. He couldn't continue like this. He needed urgent treatment. He called Jake Harlan through a secret channel. "I need a doctor in Moscow." Jake sent the address of an underground clinic in the outskirts. Inside, the doctor stitched the wound without anesthesia. Marcus gritted his teeth in pain. "Why did you get involved with Sokolov after Laura?" the doctor asked. Marcus remained silent, tears rolling down his cheeks. After finishing, Marcus stood up, his resolve steely. A clue from Boris, the abandoned factory on the outskirts. He would fly there. But first, he needed weapons from the Moscow black market. Jake handed him more painkillers. "You can't do this alone." Marcus shook his head. "This is my fight." He drove through the snow, the cold wind blowing, carrying the scent of burnt chemicals from the factory. On the way, he thought of Emily, a girl like the last hope. Sokolov was not only trafficking humans, but also running a global network from Japan to Russia, using children as slaves. Marcus would destroy it all. At the black market, he bought a sniper rifle and grenades. Avoiding cameras by keeping his head down, the jeep sped into the darkness, heading towards the abandoned factory. Akira was unconscious, but Sokolov's henchman would be waiting. He opened the stolen phone, checking messages. "The girl is at the factory." Baiting read. Inner pain surged, but he was ready. The factory would be the next battlefield. Would Sokolov set deadly traps, or would Marcus turn it into a grave, pursuing the top assassin through the streets of Moscow? Marcus took him down with hand-to-hand combat, extracting clues about the boss Ivan Sokolov. Past pains resurfaced, fueling his determination to destroy the network. The jeep sped through the snow-covered streets of Moscow, the yellow streetlights reflecting on the slippery road. Marcus Reed gripped the steering wheel tightly, the wound on his shoulder still bleeding beneath the bandage. But he didn't care. The clue from Boris led to the abandoned factory on the outskirts, where Emily might be held captive. The biting cold air of Russia seeped through the windows, carrying the scent of coal smoke and damp snow. Suddenly, a black car rushed out from a dark alley. Slamming into the back of the jeep, Marcus swerved sharply, the car skidding, but the pursuer wouldn't relent. Through the rearview mirror, he recognized the driver, Alexei Volkov, Sokolov's top assassin, tall and lean, with ice-cold eyes. Notorious for clean assassinations from Tokyo to Moscow, the chase began to intensify on the streets of Moscow, thick snow making visibility poor. Volkov fired from the window, the bullet shattering the jeep's rear glass, shards flying everywhere. Marcus accelerated, darting into a narrow alley, the jeep screeching on the snow. Volkov stayed close. The black car rammed sideways, forcing Marcus to crash into a metal dumpster. The deafening impact echoed. Marcus jumped out of the car, rolling to avoid a barrage of bullets. His body aching but adrenaline surging, Volkov leaped down, handgun drawn reed. "You will die in Russia." He fired continuously, bullets slicing through the cold air. Marcus ducked behind a dumpster, grabbing a pebble and throwing it hard. The stone hit Volkov's hand, the gun clattering on the snow. He charged forward, kicking hard into Volkov's knee. The bone cracked. He staggered. Volkov sprang up, pulling a dagger from his coat. Slashing horizontally in a flash, Marcus dodged to the side. The blade grazing his sleeve. Tearing it, he punched Volkov in the jaw. The sound of breaking bones echoed, but the guy didn't back down, slashing back towards his stomach. Marcus rolled to avoid. Kicking hard into Volkov's stomach, he flew backward into a brick wall, gasping for breath. The air was tense, the snow falling softly, mingling with heavy breathing. Volkov sneered, "Sokolov knows you're coming." The girl is bait. He lunged into close combat, choking Marcus from behind, his muscles bulging. The air was suffocating. Marcus struggled, driving his elbow into Volkov's ribs, then turning to punch him repeatedly in the face. Blood sprayed from his nose. The guy staggered. Volkov swung the knife down. Marcus grabbed his wrist. Twisting hard, the knife fell, bones cracking. He pinned Volkov down in the cold snow, his knee pressing on his chest. "Where is Emily? Where exactly is Sokolov's hideout?" Volkov coughed, blood trickling from the corner of his mouth. "You can't defeat Sokolov. The girl is at the old factory, on the outskirts of Moscow. But you will die first." The sound of vehicles from the main road echoed in, headlights sweeping through the alley. Volkov took advantage of the moment, kicking Marcus in his injured thigh, causing him to collapse, pain burning like fire. The man jumped up, pulled a backup gun from his boot, and fired repeatedly. Marcus rolled to avoid the bullets, which shattered the brick wall, debris flying everywhere. He grabbed a rusty iron rod from the ground as a shield. The sound of bullets clashing loudly. Volkov yelled, "You want to save the girl? Sokolov will butcher her like a pig." The words cut like a knife. And Marcus remembered Emily, the little girl who had once smiled innocently at the New York repair shop. He charged out, disregarding the bullets, grabbing Volkov by the neck and smashing his head against the wall. Volkov staggered. The gun fell, and Marcus kicked hard into his stomach. The man collapsed, unconscious. Marcus rummaged through Volkov's pockets and found an encrypted phone. A message from Sokolov read, "Abandoned factory. Moscow. Keep the girl as bait. Deal with Reed." He clenched his fists, blood from his hand dripping onto the white snow, mingling with a pool of red. Emily was still alive, but time was running out. Volkov whispered, "You don't know who you're up against." Marcus punched him again to ensure he wouldn't wake up soon, then dragged his body into a hidden corner. The Moscow police would arrive soon. The alarm from the chase still echoed. He limped back to the jeep, the bleeding wound making his body heavy. He called Jake Harlan, an old friend from the FBI, through a secret communication channel. Jake was waiting at a shabby motel on the outskirts of Moscow. "You look like a corpse." Marcus, inside the room. The weak yellow light illuminated Jake as he stitched up the knife wound on Marcus's hand. Without anesthesia, Marcus gritted his teeth, sweat rolling down. "Emily is at the abandoned factory. I have to go." Jake shook his head. "You're losing too much blood. Sokolov is not Akira or Boris. He's a monster." Marcus looked out the window, the snow falling faintly against the Russian sky. "Monsters die too," he said, his voice cold as ice. Memories of Laura surged back, her smile, the warm embrace. Then the explosion in Japan that took everything away. Emily was his chance for redemption, the only light in his darkness. Marcus stood up, put on his coat, hiding the gun and knife in his backpack. The trip to the factory was ready. But was Volkov lying? Was the Moscow hideout really the final destination, or had Sokolov set a deadly trap? The inner pain surged, but the determination to dismantle the network grew stronger. He plunged into the night snow, heading towards the outskirts. Would Emily wait for him, or would darkness swallow him before justice arrived, returning to New York to gear up? Marcus received a call from Emily, taken hostage, igniting a powerful motive. He planned an assault on Sokolov's hideout in Russia. With an unexpected betrayal from an old friend, the jeep sped into the darkness of the Moscow outskirts. Heavy snow obscuring visibility, the wind howling through the pine forest like a deathly warning. Marcus Reed tightened his grip on the steering wheel, the wound on his hand still bleeding. But he realized he couldn't attack the abandoned factory in his current state, lacking heavy weaponry. His body exhausted. I need to gear up, he thought, turning the car back towards Sheremetyevo Airport. Deciding to fly back to New York to retrieve the old weapons stash from his FBI days. The biting cold air of Russia seeped through his jacket, carrying the scent of damp earth and smoke from the old workshops. On the way, memories of Volkov haunted him, the top assassin unconscious in the alley. But Sokolov surely knew he was getting closer. The plane took off, Moscow gradually disappearing beneath the grey clouds. Marcus closed his eyes in the seat, his body aching, but his mind was planning back to New York. Grab the sniper rifle, bulletproof vest, and grenades from the secret basement in Brooklyn. Emily was at the factory. He had to save her before Sokolov could perform surgery on her. Arriving at JFK, it was drizzling. The smell of coffee from a roadside cafe mingling with the strong scent of exhaust. Marcus rented an old truck, driving back to the old repair shop where he had once hidden. The shop door was still shattered from the first raid, but the basement under the floor remained safe. He unlocked the secret door, descending the dark staircase. The dim neon light illuminating the weapons, a Glock, a custom dagger, a few grenades, and a sniper rifle hidden in a suitcase. He quickly packed, took a swig of whiskey to dull the pain, then called Jake Harlan. I need information about the Moscow factory. Send me the blueprints. Jake, an old friend from the FBI, sounded hesitant over the phone. Marcus, you're crazy. Sokolov has an army there. But he didn't listen. Focusing on planning on paper, fly back to Russia, sneak into the factory from the back door, take down the guards, save Emily, then finish Sokolov. Suddenly, the phone buzzed. An unknown number from Russia. Marcus answered. A trembling child's voice came through. Uncle Marcus. It's me. Emily. They made me call. Told me to say, you come alone, or else. Her sobs were cut off, replaced by Sokolov's cold voice. Reed. You killed my men. Now it's my turn. Come to the old factory on the outskirts of Moscow. Alone. Unarmed. If not, the girl dies. The call ended, leaving a tense atmosphere. Marcus's heart tightened. Anger surging like a tide. Emily was alive, but Sokolov was using her as bait, just like he had done with Laura in Japan. Not again, Marcus growled, punching the wall hard, blood from his hand flowing again. The call ignited a fierce motive, not just to save Emily, but to destroy Sokolov's entire human trafficking network. He continued to plan, use smoke grenades as distractions, take out guards from a distance with the sniper, then go in for close combat. But Jake called back, I have the blueprints. But the FBI is watching you. They think you're a traitor. Marcus was suspicious. Jake had saved him in Tokyo. But his voice sounded strange. He drove to the meeting point with Jake at a shabby bar on the outskirts of New York. The neon lights flashing brightly, the stale smell of beer suffocating. Jake sat in a dark corner, pale-faced, handing over a USB containing the factory blueprints. Here. But you should stop. Marcus took it. But suddenly, 3 men burst in from the back door, guns drawn. Sokolov's henchmen. It's a trap, Marcus shouted, rolling to dodge the gunfire. grabbing a bar stool and throwing it hard. The stool hit one man in the head, and he fell. Jake pulled out a gun, but aimed it at Marcus. Sorry, buddy. Sokolov pays more than the FBI. The unexpected betrayal from an old friend made Marcus furious. Jake had sold him out. The fight erupted chaotically. One man charged at him with a knife. Marcus dodged to the side. Punching straight into the man's throat, he collapsed, coughing. The second man fired a handgun. The bullet grazed Marcus's shoulder. Blood splattered. He lunged forward, kicking the gun away, then landed a hook to the chin. The bone cracked. The man flew back into the bar. Jake fired from a distance. The bullet shattered a liquor bottle. Shards of glass flying everywhere. Marcus used a wooden table as a shield, leaping over it, grabbing Jake by the neck, while Jake grimaced money. Read. Sokolov is richer. Marcus punched him hard in the face, blood spraying from his nose. But the third man choked him from behind. The air was suffocating. Marcus struggled, elbowing his assailant in the stomach, then turned to punch repeatedly. The man collapsed. Jake took advantage, pulling a knife and lunging at him. Marcus dodged. Grabbing his wrist and twisting it, the knife fell. The two rolled on the bar floor, exchanging blows. Jake choked Marcus. You're dying here. But the memory of Emily crying on the phone exploded. Marcus kneed Jake in the stomach, then punched him in the face until he was unconscious. Blood and glass mingled. The bar was in chaos. Marcus searched Jake's pockets, finding a message from Sokolov. Deal with Reed in New York. Keep the girl alive. The anger burned even hotter. The betrayal from an old friend only made him more determined. He escaped before the police arrived. Driving back to the airport, the new wound was bleeding again. But his resolve was ironclad. Fly back to Russia. Attack the factory. Save Emily. Kill Sokolov. Would Jake warn him, or was a bigger trap waiting in Moscow? Marcus clenched his fists, plunging into the rainy night of New York. Emily was waiting, and he would not fail. Infiltrating the abandoned factory on the outskirts of Moscow, Marcus confronted guards in a chaotic battle, saving Emily from the operating table. He uncovered a global organ trafficking conspiracy, pushing his body to the limit to protect the girl. The plane landed in Moscow under a thick blanket of snow, the wind howling through the barren fields like a death whisper. Marcus Reed stepped out of the cabin, his backpack heavy with weapons from New York, the fresh wound from the fight, with Jake still throbbing with pain with every step. He rented an old Jeep, driving straight to the outskirts. The muddy road, covered in snow, shaking the vehicle as if it would break apart. The betrayal from Jake still haunted him, an old friend sold out for money. But the call from Emily ignited a fire of rage. Uncle, come alone. The biting cold air of Russia seeped through his bulletproof vest, carrying the scent of damp earth and rusted metal. Marcus parked a mile from the factory, crouching behind a snowbank, observing through binoculars. The abandoned factory was a massive concrete block, surrounded by barbed wire. Guards with AK-47 seconds patrolling under dim headlights. He waited for night to fall. Darkness enveloping the Russian fields. The wind howling like a hunting wolf. Marcus sneaked through the fence, cutting the barbed wire with pliers hidden in his backpack, his body rolling on the cold snow to avoid the sweeping headlights. Inside, he heard the sound of children crying softly. They were forced to lie down waiting for surgery, their hands and feet tied under flickering fluorescent lights. Marcus hid behind a rusty shipping container, counting dozens of children. Pale faces, panic in their eyes. Emily lay on the operating table in the middle, her limbs restrained. A doctor in a white coat holding a scalpel menacingly. His heart ached. The memory of Laura's tragic death in Japan flooded back. But he couldn't let Emily share the same fate. Suddenly, alarms blared. Red lights flashing. "Intruder!" a voice shouted. Marcus burst out from the shadows. His silenced handgun firing accurately at a guard's leg, he collapsed, screaming in pain. The sound of gunfire ignited chaos. 4 more men charged in from the hallway, rifles firing loudly. Marcus rolled to avoid the bullets, which shattered the concrete wall. Debris flying everywhere. He fired back, a bullet hitting one man in the chest, blood spraying dark red. The second man swung a knife and lunged at Marcus, who dodged, kicking hard into his stomach. Then, landing a hook to the chin, the bone cracked. The man fell. The children panicked, crying and struggling. Marcus shouted, "Stay still." He charged deeper into the factory, where the head guard, Dmitri, Sokolov's right-hand man, stood commanding, his face fierce. Dmitri was tall, muscles bulging, pulling out a handgun and firing repeatedly. Marcus used a metal barrel as a shield. Bullets clashing loudly. The air was tense, the smell of fresh blood mingling with sharp chemicals. Marcus jumped over the barrel, kicking Dmitri's gun away, then lunged into close combat. Dmitri punched hard into Marcus's face, blood streaming from his nose. Pain, searing, but he didn't back down. Grabbing Dmitri by the neck and smashing his head into a steel column, the impact was deafening. Dmitri twisted, pulling a dagger from his boot, slashing horizontally. The blade cut into Marcus's side, blood soaking his shirt, but he grabbed Dmitri's wrist. Twisting it, the knife fell. The two rolled on the cold floor, exchanging blows. Dmitri choked Marcus, his muscles taut. "The air suffocating Sokolov will butcher the girl in front of you," Marcus remembered Emily's trembling voice over the phone. His anger exploding, he kneed Dmitri in the stomach, then punched him repeatedly in the face, blood staining the snow red. Dmitri weakened, but still grinned. "The network is bigger than you think." Organs to Europe. Thousands of children. Marcus tightened his grip on his neck until he was unconscious, his body trembling from exhaustion and fury. The sound of another guard echoed, gunfire erupting from the main door. Marcus grabbed a smoke grenade. Throwing it hard, white smoke erupted, obscuring visibility. He charged in, the dagger raised, slashing across one man's throat. Blood sprayed like a fountain, stabbing through the chest of the second man. He collapsed. The third man fired wildly. Marcus dodged, firing back. The bullet hit the heart. The man died on the spot. The last man choked him from behind. But Marcus twisted, landing a hook to the throat. The man coughed violently, falling back. Blood and smoke mingled. The factory turned into a hellish battlefield. Marcus ran to the operating table, cutting the ropes binding Emily. "You're safe now." The girl rushed into his arms, sobbing, "Uncle Marcus, they were going to cut me." He held her tightly, leading Emily and the other children to the back door, handing one of the older kids, "Run to the fields. Hide. The police will come." He called the Moscow police anonymously, reporting their location. But when he turned back to search Dmitri's pockets, he froze. Encrypted documents revealed a larger conspiracy. Sokolov's organ trafficking network stretched from Japan to Europe, supplying the wealthy elite. Hundreds of children each month. Emily was just a small part. Sokolov was upstairs, waiting to finish him off. Marcus tightened his grip on the gun, his body pushed to the limit, blood from his side dripping onto the snow. He told Emily to hide behind a container. "You wait here. Uncle will be back." But where was Sokolov? Was he waiting on the upper floor? Or had he escaped? Marcus climbed the rusty metal stairs, each step heavy from blood loss. Would he be able to finish Sokolov off before the network could regenerate? Or would his body collapse before saving everyone, facing Sokolov on the upper floor? Marcus endured a fierce gunfight, taking down the crime lord but sustaining severe injuries. He burned all the network documents, saving the other victims, but suspected a larger force was behind it all. The rusty metal stairs creaked under each heavy step of Marcus Reed, blood from his side dripping drop by drop onto the cold steps. The top floor of the abandoned factory on the outskirts of Moscow appeared like a deadly maze. Rusty steel columns stained, flickering fluorescent lights illuminating Ivan Sokolov standing in the middle of the floor. He was tall, with white beard, eyes gleaming with a wolfish glint, surrounded by 6 guards holding AK-47 seconds aimed straight at him. "Reed." Sokolov laughed coldly, his deep voice echoing in the wind and snow rushing through the broken window. "You killed my men from New York to Japan, and now you dare to come to Russia. The girl is bait. And you took the hook." Marcus didn't respond, his eyes scanning quickly. 3 exits, 2 broken windows, the floor littered with sparkling shards of glass under the falling snow. He threw a smoke grenade. White smoke erupted, obscuring visibility. Gunfire erupted, bullets slicing through the cold air. Chaos erupted. 2 guards lunged at him with knives. Marcus dodged to the side. Punching straight into one man's throat, he collapsed, coughing. The other man swung his knife horizontally, the blade glinting under the light. Marcus grabbed his wrist, twisting it. The knife clattered to the ground, then elbowed him in the stomach. The man flew back into a steel column, the sound of metal crashing loudly. Sokolov fired his handgun from a distance. A bullet grazed Marcus's ear. Blood oozing warm, he rolled to avoid, using a guard's body as a shield. Firing continuously, the remaining 3 men fell, blood staining the snowy floor, dark red. The air was tense, the acrid smell of gunpowder mingling with fresh blood and rusted metal. Sokolov stepped back, hiding behind old machinery, shouting, "You can't save them all. My network stretches from Japan to Europe. Bigger than the FBI." Marcus roared, "You die." It collapses. He threw a dagger, the blade embedding into Sokolov's thigh. He screamed in pain. Collapsing, Marcus charged forward, but Sokolov pulled out a handgun, firing repeatedly. Marcus rolled to avoid. The bullets shattered the window glass, cold wind and snow pouring in. He leaped, grabbing Sokolov by the neck, smashing his head into the machinery. The sound of metal was deafening. Sokolov twisted, punching Marcus in his injured side. Pain spreading like fire. He gritted his teeth, punching Sokolov repeatedly in the face, blood spraying from his nose. "Laura." "Emily." "You will pay," Marcus shouted, pinning Sokolov to the floor, choking him. Suddenly, Sokolov pulled a knife from his boot, stabbing Marcus in the stomach. Blood sprayed out. He staggered, his vision blurring from blood loss. But he didn't let go. Punching Sokolov hard in the chin, he fell unconscious, blood staining the snow red. Marcus dragged himself, blood flowing onto the floor. Checking around, no guards left. Documents on the table revealed a global organ trafficking network, supplying the wealthy elite in Europe. Hundreds of children from Japan to Russia. But one last message: Sokolov is just a pawn. The real boss is in Paris. Marcus clenched his fists, suspicion rising. A greater force was behind it. Sokolov was not the end. He burned all the documents, flames erupting, consuming the upper floor, thick black smoke mingling with falling snow. Marcus dragged himself down to the lower floor, his body pushed to the limit, blood soaking his jacket. Emily ran to him from her hiding place, hugging him tightly. "Uncle Marcus." "You're bleeding." He knelt down, holding the girl. "You're safe now." He led Emily and the other children outside, snow covering his shoulders. Calling the police anonymously to rescue them, Emily tugged at his hand. "Uncle, don't die." Marcus smiled weakly, memories of Laura flooding back as his final motivation. He put Emily in the jeep, driving away from the factory, flames blazing behind them. Back at the underground motel on the outskirts of Moscow, Marcus bandaged his stomach wound, taking painkillers from his backpack, his body trembling from exhaustion. Emily slept beside him, her innocent face softening his heart. But the message from Sokolov haunted him. The real boss was in Paris, a greater force, perhaps from France, behind the network. Marcus tightened his grip on the gun, the wound aching. But his resolve was steely. He would save Emily back in New York. But the mission was not over. Who was the force in Paris, or would he collapse before uncovering the truth, escaping from the Russian police? Marcus brought Emily back to the U.S., facing a manhunt from the FBI due to his past being exposed. An internal betrayal conspiracy forced him to fight one last time in New York. The sound of police sirens echoed from afar, cutting through the snowy night in Moscow. A reminder that time was running out. Marcus Reed gripped the steering wheel of the jeep tightly, his body aching from a stab wound in his abdomen, blood still seeping through the makeshift bandage. But he could not stop. Emily sat huddled in the passenger seat, her eyes red as she looked at him. "Uncle Marcus." "Where are we going now?" He glanced at the girl, his voice low. "Home." "Emily." "Back to New York." The cold wind from Russia blew through the cracked window, carrying the smell of smoke from an abandoned factory. Sokolov was dead. But his last message haunted him. The real boss in Paris, France, was behind the global organ trafficking network. Marcus sharply turned the car into the pine forest, avoiding the main road, headlights off to blend into the darkness. The Russian police would seal off the area, but he knew how to escape, experience from his years in the FBI. He parked the car behind a bush, checking on Emily. "Are you okay?" The girl nodded, but trembled. "I'm scared." "They will chase us." Marcus gently hugged her, memories of Laura flooding back like a knife. His wife had died in his arms in Japan. "I will protect you," he promised, then led Emily through the snowy forest, their feet sinking deep into the white snow. The sound of hunting dogs echoed in the distance. But he crouched behind a pine tree, waiting for the patrol to pass. 2 hours later, they arrived at a small suburban train station. Buying fake tickets with cash, the train headed towards the airport, Moscow gradually disappearing under the falling snow. On the train, Marcus rebandaged his wound, took painkillers, his body burning with fever. Emily fell asleep on his shoulder, her innocent face softening his heart. The girl was his last hope, the reason he fought. Upon arriving at Sheremetyevo Airport, Marcus avoided the cameras by lowering his head, buying a ticket to New York under a fake name. The plane took off, Russia disappearing beneath the grey clouds. On the plane, he opened the phone he had stolen from Sokolov, reviewing the documents. The network was linked to an organization in France, supplying organs to the wealthy in Europe. But suddenly, a message from an unknown number read, "The FBI knows you are in Moscow. They are waiting at JFK." His heart tightened. The past was exposed. Perhaps from Jake's betrayal. He clenched his fists, the wound throbbing, but his determination was ironclad. Emily woke up and asked, "Uncle, are we really going home?" Marcus nodded. "Yes, but we have to be careful." The plane landed at JFK under the drizzling rain of New York, the familiar smell of dampness and exhaust fumes. Marcus led Emily out through a side door, avoiding the crowd. But he could feel it, eyes watching from afar. Two FBI agents stood waiting at the gate, wearing black coats, earpieces at the ready. Marcus Reed. "Stop!" one shouted, drawing his gun. Marcus pushed Emily behind a concrete pillar, rushing into close combat. The first guy lunged at him. Marcus kicked hard at his knee, the bone cracked, and the guy crumpled down. The second guy fired. The bullet grazed Marcus's shoulder. Blood flowed again. He rolled to avoid, grabbed a suitcase and threw it hard. The suitcase hit the guy's head, making him stagger. The atmosphere was tense. Passengers panicked and scattered, screams mingling with alarm sirens. Marcus grabbed the second guy by the collar, punching him repeatedly in the face. "Who tipped you off?" The guy sneered. "The FBI knows everything. You killed Sokolov. Now you're an international criminal." But Marcus realized the guy's voice had a French accent. Not a real FBI agent. An internal betrayal scheme. They were henchmen of the boss in Paris. Disguised to catch him, Marcus punched hard, knocking the guy unconscious, then led Emily to run out to the garage, jumping into an old truck. The chase began on the New York highway, rain pattering down, the truck weaving through traffic. Two black cars chased after them. Shooting from the windows, bullets shattered the rear window, glass shards flying. Marcus sharply turned into a Brooklyn alley. The truck crashed into a trash bin. The sound of metal was deafening. He jumped out, pulling Emily into the dark alley, the stench of garbage overwhelming. Three men rushed down from the black car, guns drawn. Leading was Pierre, an assassin from France, tall and thin, with cold eyes. "Reed. The boss in Paris wants your head," Pierre shouted, firing repeatedly. Marcus used a trash bin as a shield, bullets ricocheting, then shot back. A bullet hit one guy in the shoulder, blood spraying dark red. Emily cried, "Uncle," he shouted, "hide!" The second guy lunged at him with a knife. Marcus dodged, punching straight into his throat. He choked, collapsing. Pierre swung his knife horizontally, the blade glinting under the streetlight. Marcus grabbed his wrist, twisting it backward. The knife fell, then elbowed him in the stomach. Pierre flew backward into the wall. The fight was intense. The last guy choked Marcus from behind, muscles bulging, the air choking him. Marcus struggled, driving his knee into the enemy's stomach, then turned and punched him in the jaw. The guy fell. Pierre took advantage, picked up a gun and fired. The bullet hit Marcus's thigh, pain searing like fire. He lunged forward, grabbing Pierre by the collar, smashing his head against the wall. Blood splattered red. "Who is the boss in Paris?" Marcus growled. Pierre weakly laughed. "Henri Duval. He's bigger than Sokolov. You're dead for sure." Marcus knocked him unconscious, then staggered back to Emily, blood streaming down. He took Emily to an old repair shop, bandaging his wounds, his body exhausted. Emily hugged him. "You're a hero." But the news from Pierre haunted him. Henri Duval in France, the real boss. The FBI was truly hunting him because of the exposed past. But the internal betrayal scheme from Jake was just the tip of the iceberg. Marcus tightened his grip on his gun. He determined he had to end it in New York before heading to Paris. Would Duval send more assassins, or would he collapse before saving the entire network? In the final showdown, Marcus turned the tide, eliminating the traitor and destroying the remnants of the network. An open ending with him choosing a new path, leaving Emily safe, but hinting that the mission for justice was not over. From the basement beneath the repair shop in Brooklyn, Marcus Reed looked out the window at the rain pattering on the streets of New York, the bright neon lights reflecting on the wet pavement. The stab wound in his thigh still throbbed, blood soaking through the makeshift bandage. But he could not rest. Henri Duval in France was waiting, and his henchman had surely arrived in New York to finish him off. Emily slept on the old sofa, her innocent face softening his heart. But the call from Pierre still echoed. Duval is bigger than Sokolov. He checked his weapons, a fully loaded Glock, a sharp dagger, and a few smoke grenades from the old stock. Suddenly, the shop door burst open. 3 men rushed in. Rain-soaked black coats, guns drawn. Leading was Victor, an assassin from France. Tall, with cold, icy eyes read, "Duval sends his regards. The girl and you will die tonight." Marcus pushed Emily behind the counter, rushing into close combat immediately. The first guy fired a handgun. The bullet grazed his shoulder. Blood splattering. Marcus rolled to avoid, grabbed a metal chair and threw it hard. The chair hit the guy's head, making him stagger and fall. Victor sneered, drawing a dagger to slash. Marcus dodged to the side, the blade glinting under the neon lights, then punched straight into Victor's throat. He choked, but did not back down. Swinging the knife down, Marcus grabbed his wrist, twisting it backward. The knife clattered to the floor, then elbowed him in the stomach. Victor flew backward into the wall, the sound of impact deafening. The atmosphere was tense, the smell of fresh blood mixed with machine oil overwhelming in the dark basement. The second guy lunged at him from behind, choking Marcus with his muscular arm, the air choking him. Emily screamed in fear. Uncle Marcus, he struggled, driving his knee into the enemy's stomach, then turned and punched him in the jaw. Bones cracked. The guy fell to the floor. The third guy drew a gun and fired repeatedly, bullets shattering the counter's glass, shards flying everywhere. Marcus used a wooden table as a shield, leaping over, kicking his gun away, then lunged in bare-handed, punching repeatedly into his ribs. Each hit like a hammer, blood spitting out. Victor took advantage, getting up and lunging with a knife from behind. Marcus spun to dodge. The knife embedded into the wooden table, then grabbed Victor's hair and slammed his head into the counter. Blood splattered dark red. The fight reached a climax. Victor twisted, punching hard into Marcus's abdominal wound, pain spreading like fire. He staggered, but remembering Emily huddled in the corner, his anger erupted. He lunged to choke Victor, pinning him down on the cold floor. "Where is Duval? How does the network end?" Victor sneered, blood spilling from his mouth. "Paris. France. But you won't live to see it. Duval has an insider in the FBI." Marcus tightened his grip, memories of Laura and their daughter's tragic death flooding back like fuel. He punched Victor repeatedly until he was unconscious, his breath weak. The remaining guy jumped in, but Marcus threw a smoke grenade. White smoke billowed up, obscuring the view. He charged out, kicking the guy's knee. He crumpled, then punched him in the face until he collapsed. The dark basement now resembled a battlefield, blood and debris mingling. Marcus staggered to Emily, hugging the trembling girl. "It's over. You're safe." He rummaged through Victor's pockets, searching for an encrypted phone. A message from Duval. "Take out Reed in New York. The organ trafficking network continues from Paris." Rage surged, but his body was exhausted. Blood streamed from his abdomen and shoulder. He burned the phone and the documents he had stolen, the fire flaring up, consuming the evidence. Emily clutched his hand. "Uncle, don't go. I'm scared." Marcus knelt down, his eyes red. "I have to end this, so you can live in peace. Sarah will take care of you." He called Sarah Miller, Emily's mother, who had now recovered, to come pick up the girl. Sarah hugged her child, crying, "Thank you, Marcus." He took Emily to Sarah's safe apartment. New York tonight stained with blood. But Emily hugged him one last time. "You're my dad." The words cut like a knife, igniting new hope. But Duval in France, the real boss, with an insider in the FBI. Marcus clenched his fists, the wound throbbing, but chose a new path, no more hiding, but hunting. He drove the old car to the airport, heading towards Paris. The FBI would be on the hunt, but the underground justice was not over. Would Duval be waiting with a deadly trap, or would Marcus destroy the last stronghold? Redeeming his past, the darkness was still long, but the light from Emily would guide the way.